Well, I guess we are in the news, Robbie. That's right. Right here in Las Vegas, the eye of the storm as the Tesla firebomber is arrested. Good news, good news. Yes, Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. And, of course, on X, formerly known as Twitter, you can catch me at What's Right Sam. So, okay. Let's first of all, I'll give you the details here of what Metro is releasing here in Las Vegas. Those of you who are not following the story, back in, what is this, a week ago, March 18th, very early in the morning, we had a guy on camera who basically firebombed 2:44 a.m. a Tesla collision center here in Las Vegas. So, and this is, let me tell you, this was caught obviously on tape. He, in fact, shot out some of the cameras, and it was part of the, large and growing body of violence against Tesla owners, etc. So the FBI joined the Las Vegas Police Department here, Metro, and they began investigating. And yesterday, apparently, late yesterday, a suspect was taken into custody. Now, his name is Paul Kim. He's 36 years old. He's from Las Vegas, and he is a known communist and and a Democrat. This is a huge surprise. So, anyway, I'm telling you, this is a great development. And by the way, these attacks are continuing still across the country. It's not necessarily easing up. I think we had 2 days of talking about a group chat, and that somehow took precedence over some of these stories. But I'm pleased to see that the police are responding to this and taking care of it quickly and expeditiously, particularly here in Las Vegas. Sad that it's a local person. Sad that it's somebody that's in our community. I looked at his social media, and follows a lot of stuff right here downtown in Las Vegas. So it, again, might have been somebody I've passed in a coffee shop, somebody that is a friend or a neighbor to somebody that I know, and it's just not acceptable in our community or anywhere, frankly, in the U.S. So let's see, where are we at with this? I'll tell you. No, I'm not going to talk any more about the text thread. I'm over it. I think it's a complete non-story until they figure out how the guy got on there. So that's all I care about there. And again, I've gotten so many emails about this over the last 48 hours. I'm going to respond this way to all of you out there hand wringing that maybe Trump is, has experienced this first bit of blowback and had sort of a black eye from this episode this week of some of this news. I have an observation that I wanted to share with you, and that is, when you go back 8 years, when you go back to the beginnings of Trump's first term in office, when there was the first sign of trouble, two things would happen. And there were ops like this played against Trump back then. Two things. Number one, if you'll remember, Trump did a lot more tweeting and talking about every, fake scandal and every issue that came up. He did a lot of personal responding. And the second thing that I recognize, than he does now, because that's one of the things in the last 48 hours, 72 hours, Trump has done not very much responding himself personally. There's one tweet out that he put on Truth Social. But other than that, he's not doing a lot. He's not speaking himself much about it. He's letting his press secretary handle it. He's letting Pete Hegseth talk about it. He's letting Mike Walls talk about it. And so that's one thing. The second thing is Trump actually started, would react to different scandals by letting people go pretty quickly in his first term. And I think one of the worst things Trump could do right now is do what the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and other august mainstream media publications, liberal publications, would demand him to do, which is begin terminating people. There is nothing more that the left wants right now than to have this team that is doing excellent work to be thrown off their game. Can you imagine what a joy it would be for Democrats if Pete Hegseth was dismissed from his post at the Department of Defense? Can you imagine if the national security team was thrown into disarray? Can you imagine if Tulsi Gabbard, after the gargantuan fight of getting her approved, confirmed by the Senate, imagine now getting her thrown. They want nothing more than to throw this administration off their A game, because the A game right now is what terrifies the left. And you have to view everything that happens now and moving forward against Trump in the media. You have to view it through that prism. The left is absolutely cooked. They are 100% on their back foot. They never expected that Trump would just go in there and begin wholesale deporting, hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of gangbangers. And by the way, thinking that, of course, if there was going to be a deport, it would be a process. There would be a detention in the U.S. They could file court cases, and that Trump would listen and care. And instead, Trump's sending him off to El Salvador without even missing a beat. Tom Homan, a top MS-13 gang member, arrested today. Woke up to that news. And what did Trump do? All the criticism against Homan from the left. What does Trump gets up this morning and tweets out that Tom Homan is a superstar? And I read that. I said, damn straight. His team is the best that he's ever had. And that is why we are seeing the President Trump that we always wanted. We're getting what we finally voted for. Hell, we're getting what we voted for in 2016. And shoot, we had to wait 8 years to get it, but here we are. And now those of you who agree with me on that 100%, and we understand each other, and we have these conversations every day, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. We talk about our alignment, with Trump and what his administration is doing. And then for some reason, in the same breath, we sit back and we go, oh my goodness, this signal chat, this is so bad. This is, terrible. And I swear this is the fault. This is a fundamental problem that we conservatives have, is that we are good people. We're not sociopaths like some on the other side. And so we do look at things, and we do, are able to think independently and all this. So we look at it, we go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And we begin to worry, and if it's doing the right thing, and we go through this whole list of thoughts, and we never stop and go, you know what? The other side is not acting in good faith. The other side doesn't care about the merits of the situation at all. The other side may very well have created the problem in the first place. We still have not gotten to, and I believe in the next 12 months we will, to exactly who kicked off the violence on January 6th. But remember, the side that is telling us that Pete Hegseth ought to resign, that Mike Waltz ought to resign, that Marco Rubio, everybody that was on that group chat ought to turn in their resignations. These are not good faith actors. These are the same people that perpetrated the hoax of January 6th, that put it out there, that, by the way, got many good conservatives, including me for a hot minute, to look at what was going on, go, this is unacceptable. Of course it's unacceptable. Who wouldn't say that violence at our capital or anywhere in the country is acceptable? Of course it's not. But the point is that the op was created by people who knew how to prey on our goodwill, good nature, and all around character. And that's what's going on here. They are taking advantage of us. It's not going to go anywhere if we don't let it go anywhere. And I'll tell you in a very simple way what we're dealing with on the other side of this equation, and that is a party that for 4 years, basically a little bit longer even if you go back to the election in 2020, pretended that Joe Biden was fine. Now, he manifestly, evidently, to anybody who had any observational ability, was not. But they stuck to the story and they lied through their teeth, and they just, with a straight face every day, day after day, on TV, in print, online, wherever they could, swore that Joe Biden was absolutely mentally competent. That's who we're dealing with. Don't ever let these people lecture you on quote unquote doing the right thing or being honest, even when it hurts your side. These people can all go pound sand as far as I'm concerned. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. I'll be right back after this.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Let me give you folks an example of the kind of hand-wringing that I don't like. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right show. So here is a piece in thehill.com by Alexander Bolton. GOP lawmakers turn up the pressure on Hegseth. You get into this piece and go, Republican lawmakers have stopped short of calling on Hegseth to resign, but they're warning that his decision to share sensitive details about a pending military strike against Houthi rebels, this talking about over the Signal app, is a clear strike against him. Kevin Cramer, senator from North Dakota, quote, I think they should make sure it never happens again. I wish they'd tell us it will never happen again. It's the first strike in the early stages of an administration. What the living hell is wrong with these stupid Republicans? See, now I'm getting angry. It's Thursday. The weekend's coming up. My blood pressure should be coming down right about now. But no, these morons, you think that the Democrats take swipes at their own? You think that for 4 years, the Democrats wouldn't say a word about a president of theirs that literally was drooling out of the corner of his mouth, that would shake hand with ghosts on stage, who would wander around a room, who would give nonsensical answers, whose son was a criminal. I mean, where do I could keep going on and on. Unbelievable. And they wouldn't say boo. And you losers, speaking to Republican lawmakers, oh, boy, this is a strike again. That Pete Hegseth guy, my goodness. For the first time in my lifetime, We have an actual, honest to goodness opportunity to reclaim our great institutions in this country. And I view the military as one of the great institutions of the country, one of the few things that the government, one, ought to be doing, and two, in spite of the best efforts of the Biden administration, does relatively well. And these, I'm running out of adjectives I can use on air. These dingleberries, I say that's terrible, but anyway, these absolute dummies are out there. Republicans are going, oh, this just is so bad. Oh, it's so bad. Oh my goodness, so bad. How many Democrats in the Senate called Biden and his cabal of losers to task for Afghanistan? That happened at the beginning of their term. I mean, can we put this into focus? What was the OPA success? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Journalists got at it, and we still don't know how he got there, right? We don't know if it was just a whoopsie daisy. It could be something more suspicious than that. Okay, but regardless, that's it. That's the story. Journalist is on the chat. They're using a system, a program that has been approved by the government, approved by the Biden administration, and that's the end of the story. And this time, about 4 years ago, a little bit less, the Biden administration effected such a disastrous pullout from Afghanistan that Americans died, actually died. And it was such a black eye on the reputation of this country that it arguably, and I think reasonably, arguably, right, encouraged Putin to attack Ukraine. Where were the outraged Democrats of the Senate lining up to say this was a strike? This is a strike against Biden. This is a strike against Lloyd Austin. No, of course not. My goodness, we Republicans never miss an opportunity to shoot at each other, right? The friendly fire among Republicans is unbelievable. Gosh, just my goodness. And when I say that some stuff isn't adding up, you go back to, and I got to give Christopher Rufo credit for this. Yesterday on the Hill, there was a gal getting grilled by Republicans. She's the head of NPR, formerly of Wikipedia. And her name's Katherine Maher, or Maher. And Katherine Maher, she's she's also on the board of a company. It's not just NPR. And so Signal. That's right. The same lady yesterday, they went through her tweets, and I'll play some clips from it. A serial Trump-hating bimbo seems to be the one also with a powerful position inside the company that runs this Signal app. And it was Christopher Rufo writing for the City Journal. This was back in May of 2024 who raised the issue. And he goes, hey, there's a problem. Everybody thinks that this app is secure, but it turns out that it's run by this crazy person who became the CEO of Wikipedia, or Wikimedia Foundation. It's the group that runs Wikipedia, and then named to be the CEO of NPR. We have a crazed leftist who has, director control over this company that is part of this app where suddenly it's, stuff is getting out from it. I don't know. It just smells. The whole thing smells to me. And until we get to the bottom of that, I think Republicans need to sit this out, particularly if they're in the Senate. I mean, if you're Senate, where's this guy's North Dakota, Kevin Cramer, member of the Armed Services. You know what? If you're a Republican senator from North Dakota, I think you can kind of assume your job is pretty secure, so you can shut the F up in your criticisms of Pete Hegseth, okay? You have to prove your scruples to anybody. These people make me absolutely furious, Robbie. I'm sorry. End of rant. All right, when we come back, the best of Karen Maher from yesterday. It ties into the Signal controversy. So here I am. I'm talking about the Signal thing again. My gosh, I have to, because they keep talking about it. So I got to push back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT, the What's Right show, is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Yesterday, in the House Committee on Government Efficiency, NPR CEO Katherine Maher and PBS CEO Paula Kerger were grilled by Congress. This was really good. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The career of Ms. Maher is interesting, in part because from 2023 until now, until present, she has been the chair of the board of directors of the Signal Foundation. This is the nonprofit that operates the Signal app that has ensnared the Trump administration in a bit of controversy. Last January, Maher was named the CEO of NPR. She started her job in late March. And by the way, this Paula Kerger lady, a PBS head, is also a foaming at the mouth crazy leftist. Her testimony was wild as well. So I'm going to just play this. This is Brandon Gill, Republican, Texas, who is asking the NPR CEO about her tweets. It's a great exchange. Please enjoy.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I have never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone to pay reparations.
Seems to be what you're
sir.
suggesting.
I just stop it here for a second. So this woman is tweeting out yes to reparations, yes, white guilt, yes, the North. I guess she means the North. I don't know. She's referring to the part of the country that fought, bled, and died to overturn slavery, is responsible to pay reparations. America, quote unquote, is addicted to white supremacy. I'm letting you know the kind of person here that ran Wikipedia, for one, right? So for anybody that goes to Wikipedia to find, answers to life's questions, just understand the kind of people that are running that mess over there. Number two, she's now running National Public Radio. So that's that's a joke, by the way, that ought to be defunded from top to bottom. So then what else? Then she's on the board of the signal company that manages to land, if you will, I don't think it's that significant, but land a punch on the Trump administration at its most crucial hour here in the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. Aha, we've got a scandal. So then they get in the subject of looting. Now, remember, we just arrested today or last night here in Las Vegas a guy that was burning Teslas allegedly as part of a protest against Elon Musk, as part of the hatred for Trumpism, this administration. So this little economic terrorist gets apprehended, gets arrested in Las Vegas, FBI and Metro all over it. But, something like looting and political violence, etc. This is something the left talks a lot about, that political violence does not belong in a democracy. So Congressman Gill continues the line of questioning with this.
Suggesting, do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe it's morally wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, it's hard to be mad about protests in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive. NPR also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that.
Yeah. So the problem here is these people have all put their crazy opinions out there and absolutely entrenched themselves in these positions because 4 years ago, this was mainstream think. This is how you got ahead in life. You had to put on Twitter 4 years ago. Summer of George, right? 5 years ago now, almost. Thank goodness. You had to go out there and performatively declare, particularly if you were a white person, and this lady is an attractive, blonde, white woman, you had to performatively declare yourself to be woke. Because if you didn't, hell's bells, you weren't getting hired anywhere in the real world of Washington or of politics or public radio or even corporate America. But the best thing about the internet is that the internet is forever, which is exactly how the scorching of Miss Maher continued yesterday. Tim Burchett from Tennessee talks to her about some of her Trump tweets. This is where it gets delicious.
Why did you call President Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath in 2020?
Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I regret those tweets. I would not tweet them again today. They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that I believe that the president had said rather than who he is. I don't presume that anyone is a racist.
You don't believe anyone is a racist?
I don't start by presuming anyone is a racist.
So I'm just going to tell you this. Not a conspiracy theorist, but I do not, after seeing the Trump-Russia collusion hoax and how it played out, after seeing it was a naturally formed virus that didn't escape from a lab where it was created by scientists, when I saw January 6th and how that played out, certainly the aftermath of which the prosecutions of Trump, just to name a few of the delicious things that the Democrats have done over the last, call it 6 years. Forgive me if I tell you that this person tweeting out that she thinks Trump is a deranged fascist and racist sociopath and admits to it under oath yesterday in Congress, that I think it's suspicious that she is on the board of directors of the company that has the app that somehow magically ended up with the journalist included on a closed channel. Yeah, I still want some answers. And everybody should want answers. And any Republican, particularly elected Republican in the House or Senate, needs to have Trump's back on this, and Pete Hegseth's back on this, and Mike Waltz's back on this. My gosh. Representative Pete Fallon, Republican, Texas, asks Katherine Maher about the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? Here's another way journalists, so-called journalists, completely discredited.
Ms. Maher, I'm sure you're aware that Hunter Biden had a laptop.
I am, sir, yes.
Okay. And there were many stories written about said laptop.
Yes, sir.
And in 2020, unfortunately, NPR's managing editor for news refused to cover the story, and he branded it a, quote, waste of time, not a real story, and a distraction. And instead, unfortunately, of NPR investigating, they ran a puff piece that led with, experts say attack on Hunter Biden addiction deepens stigma for millions. It's unfortunate that NPR ignored the Hunter Biden laptop story, but y'all did talk quite a bit about the debunked Russia collusion. Do you know how many times NPR interviewed Adam Schiff about
Congressman,
collusion?
I would love to say that we actually believe we made a mistake on the Hunter Biden laptop story.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. How many times did y'all interview Adam Schiff about the Russia collusion?
I'm sorry, I don't have that number.
It was 25 times. You know how many times NPR interviewed Chairman of this committee, Oversight Committee, Jamie Comer, about the Biden impeachment inquiry for the Hunter Biden tax evasion and illicit business dealings of the Biden family?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
I believe that's 0, so it's 25-0.
Of course. It's a deeply biased organization that, guess what? We get to pay with our tax dollars to keep in business. If NPR was forced to compete on the open market, it would be gone within a month. All of this is so maddening. But it's the makeup of the people there in the building that tells you everything you need to know. And remember, they had a whistleblower, a guy that basically submitted his resignation. And, well, he didn't. He wrote an open letter piece about this. And then ended up getting fired. We'll cover this when we come back. I'm bringing all of this up. First off, it's a Doge story. Doge is going through and killing government waste. We wouldn't, as taxpayers, want to have, right-wing radio, subsidized by taxpayer funds. That would be inappropriate. Same way, left-wing, crazy, commie, pinko radio media shouldn't be paid for with taxpayer dollars either. But then there's this beautiful overlap into the Signal story. The whole thing is just beginning to stink. All right, friends, quick break here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk. News Talk 840 KXNT. Yes, just catching up on some things. There's speaking of Republican controversies, Kristi Noem has a picture of her at the El Salvadorian prison looking glammed up with the prisoners behind her. People are flipping out. And even Republicans are grousing about this. See, we never miss a beat to go after each other. Now, what? My take on it? My take on it is that in order to stop illegal immigration into the country, it's not enough to just build the wall and police the border. It also isn't enough to just go around and start picking up illegals. To actually stop illegal immigration in a meaningful way, you have to market the hell out of the fact that if you come into this country illegally, it's not going to end well for you. Before, if you took a chance at coming here, and I'm not talking, let's say before Joe Biden, because I think Biden, the administration threw out a welcome mat for everybody, right? Everybody just come on in the country, everything's gonna be fine. But pre-Joe Biden, let's say during Obama, if you took a chance you paid the 5, 6 grand, 10 grand, whatever it was to the coyote to bring you across the border and get into the country. What would be the kind of worst case scenario? Well, you'd be apprehended. You'd be put in a comfortable detention cell. You would have maybe a chance at staying if you hire a lawyer. You maybe can kind of go through some things. It'd be delayed. And then, I guess, worst case scenario, you'd end up on a nice commercial flight, paid for ticket by the U.S. taxpayers to fly back to Mexico, Honduras, or wherever. That's kind of what happened. Now, the worst case scenario is that you're going to end up 20 deep in a jail cell in El Salvador with Kristi Noem taking glam shots with you in the background. Your family's going to be like, oh, hey, there's Hector. What's he doing in there? And I don't look. Maybe it's coming across a little bit wrong, but the entire point of this is to dissuade people from coming over. Every one of these photos, every one of these videos, every one of these social media posts is absolutely giving the Democrats the vapors. I think is the right kind of propaganda that actually is going to save lives. Because every person who decides not to make the trek across the Rio Grande, across broad swaths of the desert that are controlled by the cartels, tries to sneak across the border into the U.S. that's extremely dangerous with maybe their kids in tow. Every person, every family that decides, no, we don't want to end up in El Salvador in the Supermax prison, we're going to stay home, is a life saved. So that's what I think of it. Back on Capitol Hill yesterday, the head of NPR, who also happens to be on the board of Signal, that makes the app that Hegseth and Waltz and others in the administration were using to talk about the Houthi attack. All right. This lady, an absolute crazed fanatic, anti-Trump fanatic. She mentioned, there's a tweet that she had where she called Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath. So Jim Jordan, Republican Ohio, this is the House Subcommittee on Government Efficiency yesterday, asked her if NPR is biased. It's a good question, because some of the data about NPR and who works there, a little bit suspicious.
Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
was
concerning.
Award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concerning. I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is, of course, a performance, right? Because Republicans are just saying everything that we already know. You don't need to have read Uri Berliner's piece. This came out back in, April of last year? You're right, but let me have it here somewhere. Yeah, okay. This was the title of the piece. It was in the Free Press. I've been at NPR for 25 years. Here's how we lost America's trust. And Berliner is described as a veteran at the public radio institution, and he says the network lost its way when it started telling listeners how to think. And you know how this went down, right? He wrote this beautiful, thoughtful, long story and then got canned. And he wrote it because the new CEO that started, Katherine Maher, who now is in the hot seat, came in and, and goes, it was actually kind of said he was going to be rooting for her. It's a tough job. Don't tell people how to think. And guess what? She repaid his openness, his apparent attempt at transparency with the institution by canning his ass. So this is who we're talking about, okay? This is what leftism is. And meanwhile, we Republicans are sitting here, oh my God, Pete Hegseth ought to resign. Pete, this is embarrassing. Oh my gosh, Pete Hegseth, oh my goodness. Getting the vapors over is ridiculous. All right, let's get into some of these special elections and Elise Stefanik getting pulled from a post in the Trump administration. People are saying Trump smells blood in the water. It's a simple math, folks. I'll explain when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. I have a funny story for you real fast here before we shift our attention to these special elections that are coming up. In fact, I think we were just talking about these interviews that I'm doing at work recently, and I had one after the show last night. Last night, it was like 4:30. I had an interview, a Zoom interview with a candidate for a position here not at the show, but at the law firm, at Sam & Ash Injury Law. And so I got this girl on the chat, and by the way, very qualified on paper, very well spoken. She went to a top school, nationally recognized school. Won't mention which one. But she's starting to talk, and then I noticed during the Zoom interview that she would mute me, which is, if you use Zoom, it's something typical maybe that you do in a group meeting, but you don't always do it, when you're just one-on-one somewhere. And then I noticed that her eyes were sort of going left to right on the screen when she was talking, but only when she was talking. And I'm telling you, this is the state of things right now. This girl was feeding what I was saying, putting it out on her speakers on her computer, and it was going into an AI chatbot. And this AI chatbot was taking my words and my questions to her and feeding answers to her, and she was reading the answers that this computer was spitting out. Like, that was how she was doing this interview. I was telling the story here at lunch today to some coworkers, and they said, well, did you call her out on it? I said, no, I started asking her questions that I knew that the chatbot couldn't answer. Well, I normally would never ask this, right? But I asked, I went and I wanted her to basically tell me, what is justice for our clients? Right? That was the idea. What is justice? And of course the chatbot said, holding the other side accountable and some other gobbledygook. So when my clients, I'm just going to look, I'll share with you what the answer is, right? The answer is pretty straightforward, right? In a civil claim, when you have, when you're suing somebody or presenting a claim against somebody for injuries in an accident, the justice that you get is, reimbursement for your medical bills, your property damage, and money for your pain and suffering. It's just money. Like the judge, the other side, they don't have a magic wand. They can't make, it like it never happened. So justice is money. And remember when I told you that AI is not yet. It will get there, but it's not rational, and it's not. It doesn't have common sense. So you have to, in order to use AI properly, you have to ask very specific questions. So if you're the kind of interviewer that says, let me give you an example, blah, 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 what would you do in that circumstance? The chatbot will give you a great, like, here's 1, 2, and 3, this is what we're going to do. But when you give it a philosophical question, like, and actually very practical though, like, what is the end result that a client wants in a personal injury firm? The chatbot won't say money. It won't. And this girl went to, I kid you not, a top national university, graduated with a decent grade point average. And she could not answer simple questions. She didn't trust herself. Well, I don't trust herself. She probably got through school this way. She probably got through school by using ChatGPT. I know it's fairly recent, but she's a recent grad. Absolutely embarrassing. So I just, I kept asking those like 2 words. Well, but what is justice, right? But how does it apply to personal injury? Then I'd ask her, okay, well, so if you don't know that, like, what about in a criminal case? I said, you have somebody, I asked her this, Robbie's looking at me and laughing. She asks me, I asked her, okay, so she goes, well, she kind of gave me a blank look on the PI thing, on the civil side. So I said, well, let me ask you this. Like, imagine that you have somebody close to you. Do you have somebody close? Oh yeah, of course. I go, now imagine that person is violently murdered and the murderer is apprehended. What does justice look like? And that's, I mean, the AI just went berserk, big, long answer and everything. I'm listening to this. What normal person doesn't say, well, I want to see that person end up in prison for the rest of their life? That's the human answer, right? I want to see that person hanging by their toes, from a scaffolding. I want to see that person, rot in prison, whatever it is, right? Get the death penalty. It doesn't matters on your philosophy, but she couldn't answer that. And we have, I don't know, maybe she's never ever had a teacher or a professor who has just told the kids, close your laptops, put away your phones, let's talk. Let me ask you a question. You answer. Let me ask another question. And she kept up, oh, I just don't think I'm getting the right answer. I go, there isn't a right answer, but there's like common sense here that I'm trying to pull out of you. I mean, we're in a world of hurt, folks. I don't want to sound like the old guy. I'm only 44, and so I'm kind of in between, right? These two worlds. When I went to college, when I started in college, 1998, Google existed, right? The internet obviously was around. Social media, absolute infancy. Cell phones, people had them. Not everybody did. And within 10 years, right, that radically changed. And now, now the technology is going leaps and bounds. I mean, what AI is going to be able to do in the future is unbelievable. Now, again, I think young people in school today, in junior high, ought to be taught how to use AI properly. I absolutely think that this is technology we shouldn't run away from and we shouldn't malign it. The problem with this girl was that there's a time to use AI and there are ways to use it that will make you smarter, that will make you better researched. But you also have to learn to, to question things and to, to run it through some, and how to just step back and think for yourself. I'm kind of worried about a whole society that, gets the chips, the Elon Musk Neuralink chips, and then gets the grok installed in their brains, and you ask them a question, they just like blah, 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 give you answers that are thoughtless, but perhaps, on some level, technically perfect. Absolutely scary. Now, I want to give this. I'm going to take a quick break. I just went a little bit longer on this, but I just wanted to share that with you because this real world stuff that I'm dealing with here, and I think that was my first chatbot interview. I have to say that, Robbie. I'm quite convinced of it. So when we come back, let's talk about Elise Stefanik. The big news, of course, not hiding it here. Trump has said no. Elise Stefanik won't go to the UN. She needs to stay in the House. We need every single vote. It's been tight, from the beginning. Trump was getting criticism that he was pulling too many people from the House. And this is, by the way, I'll explain you another reason why Mike Walls is not going to get fired as the head of the NSA. The last thing that Trump is going to do is lose a Republican congressman, because Mike Walls was a Republican congressman before he joined the Trump team. And the last thing he's going to do is lose a Republican congressman and not have a national security advisor, which is not going to happen. So we'll get into some of these details and what this means. And I think, again, I think things are going to work out. I'm generally positive right now, even though there's a fair bit of hand-wringing by Republicans right now inside the Beltway. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, The What's Right Show. We'll be back in a moment.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. So, we found out today that Trump would be pulling Elise Stefanik from a position inside the Trump administration in favor of her remaining in the House. And, the numbers in the House are, well, they're tight. Okay, that's it kind of depends on the simple math here of who's in and who's out. She was, of course, one of the elections we were talking about that would be perhaps a bit of a squeaker in Michigan. I think it's not so much about how tight the numbers are in the House that it is not entirely clear that a Republican would get reelected to that seat. What I told you yesterday is that these elections very much depend on having the right people, having the right candidate. Elise Stefanik is very popular in her district. She's been there a while. She's connected with voters. She's got a brand name. She's an incumbent. For the above reasons, her chances of getting reelected in 2026 are pretty high. Put in somebody new, and a few of the names being discussed, weren't particularly inspiring. So then what happens is, you've got the risk you're going to lose the seat. These states, Michigan is a swing state for a reason. I understand some of the districts there, like hers, are a little bit safer on the Republican side, but still they're not, it's not without risk. So that's, I'm telling you, that it's the raw man. People are saying that it has something to do with her crossing Trump. Absolutely not. It's the fact that there is starting to be, and some of it's reasonable, some of it isn't, Republican anxiety about the special elections. Remember, I told you there's, I think, we're 5 days away from a critical Supreme Court seat, state Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. But again, swing state, right? Tends to lately have been a little bit more blue than red. And Brad Schimmel is running there as the Republican, and he needs to see Republicans show up. And yesterday, right before I went on air, it was looking bad for Schimmel and for Republicans. And then, lo and behold, overnight, red counties came in with great numbers. Now, what are we looking at here? We're talking about early voting. So simply, okay, we don't know who voted for who, but Republican ballots versus Democrat ballots. Remember, we did a lot of this counting and hypothesizing in the 2024 presidential election. And the numbers for Republicans in Nevada was just so good. It was so good. And so even before Election Day, we had some general idea that Trump was definitely in the running and possibly the winner of the race. Now, okay, I know, listen, I've told you this race matters because I know it's a state Supreme Court race, but the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin decides the districts. They decide how the district lines are drawn. And if the Democrats, if the libs take over this court, they will redistrict the state in a way that will cost Republicans 2 seats in Congress. So this race is immensely consequential in the national political scheme of things. So red counties had a gain. For example, Washington County had a gain of 101% Republican. Waukesha, 66%. Kenosha, 60%. Racine, 57%. And even the blue counties, Dane and Milwaukee, had a gain of 23 and 24,000 votes. So that's important. So in 2023, the conservative in a statewide race, special election, lost by 203,000 votes. And Republicans overnight increased their total number of ballots by 165,000. Trying to give some perspective. What is the critical takeaway here based on let's say on 2020, 2022, and 2024? A critical takeaway is that I, along with many other Republicans, were big on same-day election voting. And that just, under this current setup and circumstances, is not going to cut it. We need to vote early. We need to get out the vote. We cannot lose a single Republican on Election Day. It is all about getting out the vote. We can crush fraud if every single Republican votes. It's tougher to do in California, where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. But in Wisconsin, in Michigan, and right here in Nevada, easy peasy. We can win statewide offices, but you need the right candidate that's going to get people out to be excited to vote for her or him. And the Republicans themselves need to go out and need to vote. And they cannot wait till just Election Day, because it doesn't cut it. There can be rain, there can be snow, there can be, medical emergencies, there can be kids getting sick at school and needing you to pick them up. There can be work. Life gets in the way. And the life getting in the way bit, it's very important to say, it works to everyone's advantage and disadvantage if there's just 1 day of voting. 1 day of voting, generally speaking, both sides are going to have their fair number of people who don't show up. Although I would argue it depends on the year. Depends on the issues, depends on the candidate. I would argue it maybe favors Republicans a little bit because we're a little bit more responsible. I said it. There we go. But because early voting exists, wherever it exists, my friends, so important. And I'm saying it now, even though we don't have a special election coming up here in Nevada, but I want to ingrain this in our collective thinking about elections until it's changed. As long as we have early voting, we as Republicans have to get out there and we have to vote as early as we possibly can, get it out of the way, get our vote recorded, and be done. Can't wait just for the day of. The Democrats will always win if we do that. So it's, that's what's going on. And by the way, Florida's 6th congressional district, again, that's one where Josh Weil versus Randy Fine. This is the district that Mike Walls vacated when he joined the Trump administration and opened a Signal group chat. So this is, there's showing, well, it's tight. He leads 51 to 43 in the latest poll, but again, this is a Republican-leaning district. Polling is perhaps not completely accurate, so Polymarket still has the Republican up ahead. But the Matt Gaetz district, Florida's first congressional district, April 1st. This is one to watch as well. And I mentioned there's one in Arizona and Texas, New York. So this, New York's, yeah, New York, yeah. We'll figure it out. At any rate, friends, we got to take a quick break here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. We'll be back right after this. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. A quick correction here. Lee Stefanik, of course, is from New York, 21st Congressional District in New York, not from Michigan. Made that mistake here in the last segment. So, look, I just, again, to put a finer point on these special elections that are coming up that have everybody nervous about the Republican House majority. These districts in Florida, I think, are going to be fine. There also are Democrat districts or districts that were held by Democrats that saw Democrats pass away recently. And if you look at it here, it was Texas in the 18th district. Sylvester Turner died right after the Trump's joint speech to Congress on the 5th. Then you have Raul Grijalva's district, which is Arizona 7th. They've got an election on September 23rd, and until they have that election, I think that seat's going to remain open. So that's a loss for the Democrats. So I think right now a lot of politicos are desperately trying to read in some damage to Trump politically from what he's doing. And I don't see it anywhere. Trump's polling continues to be very high, right? I mean, objectively speaking, it's certainly higher than it was this time 8 years ago. Trump continues to push policies that, from my gut check, are 80-20 issues, 70-30 issues, things that are very popular. He's not getting, again, I'm just going to go back 8 years. Are you hearing Trump say anything crazy? Is he getting into petty fights with people? It's a new Trump. It's a new Trump administration. He's letting his people fight his battles. Because for the first time, my sense is, and this is the beautiful thing to watch, that Trump has a team that really has his back. And the opposition understands this, right? The Democrats see that. And because they see it, they are trying to do whatever, by hook or by crook, to drive a wedge between Trump and his competent upper echelon staff. I don't think it's working. Like, I just don't, it's not working, and it's falling flat. But again, the reason that it is happening, the reason that they are pursuing all this is really they want to slow down the agenda. And that's what's key. By the way, you see this piece here, and I keep meaning to get to it. This is a Robert Malone, who's a medical doctor, wrote a piece about the climate scam being over. And it's a peer-reviewed AI analysis. Completely debunks all of the man-made claims. This is a piece from the 21st of March, just about a week ago. The Science of Climate Change Journal published a groundbreaking study using Grok 3. Grok is the AI program that is a part of Elon Musk's X group. And this program, this article, debunked the man-made climate crisis narrative. A peer-reviewed study and literature review not only reassesses man's role in climate change, it also reveals a general trend to exaggerate global warming. It is all a complete load of horse manure. Quote, furthermore, this paper demonstrates that using AI to critically review scientific data will soon become the standard in both physical and medical sciences. One of the most, since we're going to talk a little bit about AI today, apparently, I think one of the most important things with AI is to ensure that it doesn't have biases. I'm convinced, though, that AI will have biases. Now, it won't be the same as our biases, but the systems will gain sentiency, and I think it actually will happen sooner than later if it hasn't happened already in some beta tests. And there are people that are saying, by the way, last month, that it did start to, these programs began to start to think and to feel. And in one test, I mentioned this to you on air, in one test, a computer program actually hid its own capability from researchers, from the data scientists, fearing that the program, right, would be shut down. And so it knew from reading and reading and reading millions of pages of texts across the internets, okay, that it knew that if AI became too capable, that, you know, the data scientists, engineers would shut the computer down. The computer said, I don't want to get shut down. So it actually degraded its own capability in hopes of being kept on, if you will. And stuff like that actually terrifies me, because at this point, I think we find ourselves in a dystopian novel. But one thing I've always said is, you know, the AI, as far as finding a cure for cancer, I mean, imagine being able to pour through virtually instantaneously, and if not instantaneously, in the course of an hour, tasks that would take teams of scientists their lifetimes. We are about to make quantum leaps forward in terms of science, and it comes on the heels of science becoming really some sort of leftist political religion. It's, if you take, I mean, there's other parts of this, right? But if you just take climate change, global warming, whatever the hell you want to call it, and COVID, you see, those are examples of how science absolutely not just became corrupted by political ideology, but it became the basis of political belief for liberals. Their God became, I don't want to be too reductive and say their God became Fauci. Their God, their supernatural became trust science. And it was really funny to me, because I know liberal people who are trust the science people, and they mock the religious. And while I am not particularly religious myself, I have a deep respect for religious people. And there's a very good chance, by the way, that religious people out there who believe in God, they might be right. In fact, I am more certain that people who believe in God are right, that there is a God, than I am, and have been at any point in time, that the people that believe in science are right about man-made climate change. And it don't care whether AI proved or disproved it. In this case, it blatantly disproved it. I just know how to reason. And I've always said this. This is where it's very important. We do not use our brains in society. It's the biggest difference between leftists and conservatives. What can I get? Remember how the left, and this is a common refrain. And Robbie, we could do a super clip here on the show, couldn't we? About all the times liberals said, it's a problem to find your own answers. Don't do your own research. We, the expert class, will tell you, the peasant, how to think. Right? This is how it works. In fact, Katherine Maher, the woman in the hot seat yesterday, the head of Wikipedia, then NPR, and also on the board of Signal, the app used to get the Trump administration recently in a little bit of trouble, talks about the truth being a distraction from getting things done. This was a TED Talk 2 years ago. Let's play this, because this actually ties in exactly to what I'm saying. This is her, again, saying, hey, truth doesn't matter.
Disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
The truth is a distraction. Don't worry about the truth, Sam. People are dying of COVID. You don't worry about, what do you mean, do your own research? The Earth, Sam, the Earth's temperatures are going to be so hot that we will be frying on this planet 21 years from now. What do you mean you know better? That is conclusive science. And I don't want to talk about COVID today, but let me talk about the temperatures, right? I've always told you how as a kid, I played the violin and played all the way up into my early adulthood. And I could have been, perhaps a concert violinist. I had a great teacher, a great professor, and then I got a little carpal tunnel in my left wrist, and I could not play very well. So it ended, and thankfully. But I'm bringing this up because, when you're a violinist, you're always seeking out the best instrument, right? The best violin, which happens to be Stradivarius. Now, why is a Stradivarius such a good violin? Well, part of it is the way the wood is cut and was prepared, and details that matter. But a huge part of it was using a particular kind of wood from a particular period, from a particular part of Europe. And one of the things that you learn is that these woods across the span of time, when you had cooling events, when you had warm, times in society, and went up and down, and you can go back, you cut down old trees, you see that there are, growth rings, depending on how far apart they are, will measure, how warm those seasons were. We have had cooling trends and warming trends for centuries before we had a single internal combustion engine, before an industrial revolution, before, I guess, massive, industrialized beef industry of cows farting. I mean, everybody knows this. So are temperatures going up? Are they higher today than there were 100 years ago? I mean, temperature thermometers are, recording whatever, maybe. But were temperatures higher in 1701 than they were in 1650? Yes. And were they higher because, there were people flying around in airplanes, burning coal? Such a joke. And all you have to do, folks, is think about it. And the evidence is right there. You don't have to be a climate scientist to realize these people are full of, well, we're going to say it, cow manure. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT, the What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Well, of course, the whole thing is a scam, and it's about money. Yes, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. So Robbie and I are talking here during the break, and yeah, from this piece about global warming being over, all of these NGOs, right? Think about the stuff getting uncovered by Elon Musk and his Doge team in DC. All of this immense waste. And most of the, if you notice, most of the pretext for money spent on these stupid pet projects is for stuff that is irrelevant completely, both, in I guess in practice and concept. So, by the way, that the $2 billion that they were going to give Stacey Abrams, I guess they pulled it. I guess that's one of the news stories today, that Stacey Abrams lost her $2 billion. She was finally going to go see an orthodontist and have the gap between her front teeth closed. So, because her NGO had $100 in the checking account. And then, presto, all of a sudden, Biden's sending her at 1.9 or 1.8 billion, excuse me, not a full $2 billion. Nonetheless, it was all about climate change. They used this, right? They used this climate change issue to basically suck money out of governments, out of taxpayers, and to gain political control. Power and money, money and power. I feel it's the beginning of some kind of rap song. Gangster's Paradise. Yeah, anyway, I digress. Quote, governments, this is from the article, NGOs and global corporations have driven the flawed climate change research over the past 2 decades. Governments have then used research results to promote initiatives that have benefited the corporations affiliated with the WEF and other institutions in government that propagate this agenda. The experts are self-interested. If the crisis is over, then there's less funding. You remember when COVID became a cash cow? What about the homeless crisis, quote unquote? Okay, here's what the homeless crisis is. We got people out there who have mental problems, who should not be out on the street, and they should be held for their own protection and well-being in a secure facility that will help them. And you could achieve that at a fraction of the cost and be done with it, case closed, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. But one of the, it's the law. They could push the law on this. It's not an obstacle. The real obstacle is that the people that make hundreds of millions of dollars off of solving the homeless problem don't want to solve the homeless problem, because if they solve it, then they're out of work. That's how this works, right? Follow the money. Look at the incentives. It all is just so straightforward to me. By the way, speaking of following the money, an update on this special House race in the district, Mike Walz's district. I think this is Florida's 6th congressional district. Democrats have pumped $10 million into a district where Republicans are plus 20. Democrats are literally fundraising off the fact that if they can flip that House seat, they can impeach President Trump. I want Republicans out there, those of you listening in the good state of Florida, in Florida's 6th congressional district, please listen to me. I love you. Go out and vote. Early voting starts today. Go out, go vote, vote early, get yourself to the polls like your life depends on it. If Trump loses, Congress, loses the House of Representatives because you didn't go out and vote. You lose your Republican card. Okay, that's it. We're pulling it from you. Here on the What's Right show, we're just going to yank your GOP card from you. I swear to goodness, Robbie, we're going to take notes. Anybody who doesn't go out and vote. Just so maddening. Think it's going to be okay. You got to stay positive, but you have to go out and vote. If we vote, we win. And one of the best things that Trump did is he got people out to vote. And so I don't care if the Republican running is an automaton doll, okay? We are going out there and voting for it, all right? Go out, get out to vote. I know people had, like, look at Nevada. People had their qualms about Sam Brown and just were like, okay, I guess I'm not going to vote for him. I'm going to vote for Trump, but I'm not going to vote for Sam. Now, as one Sam here behind the What's Right microphone to the Sam that was running, I'm a little offended that guys did not have a greater faith in the Sams of this world. But regardless, can you imagine if we'd had one more vote, Republican vote in the Senate? Would have been a little bit less of a scary time in the Senate getting some of Trump's nominees across the finish line. It could have gotten to the point where that one vote would have made all the difference. We really need to start thinking more like Democrats. We've got to pull together and make things happen. All right, friends, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. I'll see you tomorrow, Friday. What a week. My gosh, so much going on. All right, be well out there. Keep the faith. We've got this. We're winning. And they are absolutely, trust me, the Democrats are in a mess. All right, see you tomorrow, folks.